Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything that revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
The champions! Is that the theme music, James?
I told you already. Injuries are going to derail your hopes, and all shit seems to be happening.
Listen, every time we derail our hopes, everyone else around us seems to shit the bed. So, look, I just thought I'd get it in early. We are here to talk about FPL. We're not here just to talk about what happened last night, but we're going to give the games a rundown. A fairly surprising weekend of football. There were some shock results, some interesting performances, and all in all, I would say very enjoyable. Your thoughts?
Really good weekend of football, actually, on the whole. I don't know if influenced by the international break, a lot of tired legs, maybe games being a little bit more open, or whether we should just credit the players for providing what was every game this weekend had a story. Yeah. Every game was watchable in one way or another. So it was a really good weekend of football on the whole, actually.
I thought so too. Just all good. Let's talk about your FPL team, my FPL team, what we did, what moves we made, and how Chelsea done us over. Done us over.
Timo Werner was the 1 week Chelsea punt for me, which wasn't on the agenda, but with Thomas Tuchel saying he would definitely start on Friday, I was like, yeah, do you know what? I'm backing Fulham to win at Villa anyway. Wrong again. I'm going to remove Ollie Watkins. I mean, it cost me a point or two, I think. But pretty much whichever Chelsea 1 week punt I would have gone for probably would have cost me 1 or 2 points or so. And a lot of people would have been in that boat. 56 points for myself. Saved somewhat. It sounds better than what it is. Saved somewhat by Harry Kane as captain. I think for many other people, kind of similar story as well. Werner assist, Rafinha assist, Ruben Diaz clean sheet, little cheeky Vladimir Sufal assist of the season last night. Not quite rivaling Jan Vertonghen's for Heung-min Son in December 2019, but not far off.
Not far off, yeah.
That was my week, mate. I am on Wildcard. It's been active since Saturday.
I have not activated my wildcard, but I'm highly likely to. I ended up on 71 points this week, which gave me a game week rank of 218,000, which is pretty decent, actually, to be honest with you. So I've had a nice rank rise to 676,000 overall. I'm pretty sure. Let me just check. Yep, highest rank of the season so far.
Well done. Congratulations.
So still got free hit and wildcard up my sleeve. Wildcard probably going to be played this week. I bottled it on the Leeds captaincy and went with Harry Kane. Made sense in the end to go with the herd. And so I decided, let me just go with Harry Kane. But 26 points there. Ollie Watkins returned for me. Rafinha returned. Bruno Fernandes with an assist. Ruben Diaz with a clean sheet. And Jesse Lingard, who is an absolute machine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 matches, 4 double-digit returns, and only 1 blank.
We'll certainly be talking about Jesse during this podcast, and I think there's every chance he's going to make it into my wild card, just on form alone, actually. And to be honest, you've got a difficult couple of fixtures coming up with Leicester, Chelsea, but your final 5 is really good, actually.
Yep.
So I think he's probably going to make it in for me. I had a green arrow this week, actually, with those 56 points, Suj. Massive one. Up from 331,670 to 330,118.
A whole 1,000 places.
It's remarkable that, because game week 27, I dropped 1,000 in rank, and this week I've gone up 1,000 in rank. Normally, when that's the sort of thing you're doing, your rank's in 4 digits or so. No, not for me. I've been hovering around the exact same place for 5 game weeks or so. So now's the time to try and break away from it.
I am 70 points behind a mini league rival, and I've got 8-9 weeks now to close that gap. And he has got his free hit as well. My single goal is to beat this guy. So I think that's quite a big gap to overcome.
Are you that far behind me?
Not you. I'm talking about you. 50 points behind you, I think. 50 something points behind you. Yeah, and just while we're here, a couple of quick things. So obviously you mentioned that you are on Wildcard. Listeners, this Friday will be a Wildcard special. Am I right, James?
That's the plan, yeah. I intend to say what my wildcard team's going to be. So for those who are DMing me saying wildcard thoughts, just tune into that podcast Friday
exactly.
morning.
I do understand.
I'll be locked in, subject to team news.
Yeah, I think obviously people want to know now because of price rises and price falls and trying to get in early, but do be patient. We'll be recording a wild card special for you on Friday, and I'm sure there's going to be names that get a mention as we run down the fixtures that we'll point out as potential interesting wildcard options. Also, in the Planet FPL Correspondence League, James, manager of April so far, and I understand that there's only been one game week, and I also understand that he played his triple captain chip.
Who's that?
Manchild in the house.
What?
Manchild triple captained Harry Kane.
Good lad.
Scored 75 points this week for a game week rank of 96,400. He had Mo Salah, Marcus Rashford, Ollie Watkins, Harry Kane, and those four players alone were enough to give no one else returned, mate. Well, Emi Martinez, if you want to count save points. No one else returned, but those four players alone were enough to give him a game week rank inside the top 100,000.
Dumb fuck doesn't know Harry Kane's got a double in 2 weeks, does he?
Listen, Harry Kane, I mean, he'll do well to score that 13
Of course he will. Yeah,
in a couple of weeks in a double game week. So
you would take that score all day long from a triple captaincy. So well done, them Manchild.
So should we run down some of these games, starting with the Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll get into some Twitter questions as well. We've had some good, interesting questions on Twitter as well. I've had a chance to have a nice scan through and so on and so on. So the first game on Saturday was the banker, James. Chelsea haven't conceded any goals. But as you mentioned to me yesterday on our Patreon pod, since Thomas Tuchel's taken over, how many goals had Chelsea conceded prior to yesterday?
2 goals in 14 games in all competitions.
And how many goals had West Brom scored in all competitions?
In over the same period, 5.
So Chelsea conceded 2 and West Brom scored 5.
It's
there you go. Exactly spot on. Exactly what the stats predicted, eh? I just have to say, I thought that West Brom, that their finishing and their attacking intent was so good. I mean, Callum Robinson's side-footed finish, Pereira, that they were just good in front of goal. You just felt like when they were getting in attacking positions, they're going to score here, they're going to score here. And Chelsea lost their heads.
I don't know about lost their heads. I mean, the scoreline in the end was a little bit silly. West Brom were ruthless in terms of the chances they took on the second half. It's worth saying all of West Brom's goals, if for any reason you haven't seen, were all from open play. They weren't from set pieces or anything like that you might associate with a Sam Allardyce team. The first one obviously has a long ball element to it. Chelsea didn't start the game well. They obviously got ahead, but there was some sloppy individual performances even before the Thiago Silva red card. I mean, Jorginho basically has got Thiago Silva booked twice. You should know better than lunging for the second yellow card. No complaints. It's a red card. Credit David Coote actually for making the decision, because he quite easily could have said, I played an advantage, it's a shot, and bottled the big decision, but he actually made it and it was the right call. You're right what you say about the finishing. I think it kind of fell into West Brom's lap a little bit because Dara O'Shea obviously got injured. They'd reverted to a back five, basically a 5-4-1 with Conor Gallagher ineligible. So to say they set off would be incorrect, because what was interesting about it, when you think 5-4-1, you think, they'll go back into shape and make them difficult to break down. But actually really still went and pressed, which has been a feature of West Brom's play over the last few game weeks, is that Gallagher and Maitland-Niles really get in people's faces. If they miss the first press, then obviously they funnel back into position. But they still went and pressed Chelsea quite high despite the change of system. They allowed the wing-backs to get quite high. But Ivanovic replaced Dara O'Shea. The first time he tried to sprint for the ball after the hapless Timo Werner, he did his hamstring. And from the first sub to the second sub, the game situation changed from 0-0 to obviously Chelsea being 1-0 ahead and a man down. And the introduction of Callum Robinson really swung things in West Brom's favour. They obviously switched to a back four. And Robinson was really good. He's got this incredible stat of 5 Premier League goals, all of which have been scored against Chelsea. But the best thing it did was free up Mateus Pereira, who's the one player in the team who really does have a serious amount of ability, given a bit of time on the ball. And he kind of played with a freer role, particularly in the second half. He obviously took his 2 goals really well in the first half. Nothing interests me from West Brom. I don't think, this changes things for them suddenly. They've got
They've got flash in the pan.
They've got one of the worst run-ins of fixtures still to go, in my opinion. I mean, arguably the easiest fixture they've got left on paper, you could argue, is Wolves, which is their local derby. So it's obviously not going to be. It's going to be a tough game. But they were splendid. The 4th goal that Dejan scored was a beautiful goal.
Very good.
Beautiful goal.
I think, with Mateus Pereira, I mean, shout out to 21 points is FPL Hall of Fame type stuff. Very rarely do players get into the 20 points. 21 pointer is very good. But obviously no one owns him. I bought Mendy as my transfer before this week. Yeah, it didn't work out. I'm sticking with him for now. You obviously bought Timo Werner on a 1-week punt. Do you think Chelsea will make it into the wild card?
Yeah, I'll have one in there.
Defensive or offensive?
Well, we did clash the correspondence yesterday with McTavish and Rotation FPL, and Ted, as he summed it up really well in his opinion. I was surprised to hear that from his perspective, he's probably only going with one Chelsea player, and that's probably likely to be Antonio Rudiger. And it's price influenced why he would go with him over Azpilicueta. Ted's fairly certain that Rudiger will come back in. Now, there's a caveat to that. Obviously, they're still in the Champions League, so there will be rotation. No one's saying Rudiger's going to play every single Premier League game. Zuma didn't have a good day. Christensen will obviously play against Palace at the weekend, but Thiago Silva will probably come back in for him after that, assuming he's back fit. So you're looking at Rudiger, Silva and Azpilicueta being the first choice back 3. I think there's probably even the case to say that if it switched to a back 4, as it stands, Azpilicueta will probably play right back in the majority of the games. But it looks like the back 3 is going to stick. I mean, even after they went down to 10 men, they stayed with that back 3. It was quite brave, actually, and they got punished for it. There's no circumstance where Chelsea should have been losing the game in the way they did, but that's the way it unfolded. I think N'Golo Kante was a massive miss from. He's been really good last month or so, Kante. More like what you expect and remember from him. And Jorginho and Kovacic can't cover the ground in the same way for him. Kante would have been brilliant for them in that game, being reduced to 10 men, because when he's at it, you feel like he's an extra body for you anyway. The attacking Chelsea players don't interest. I pressured Ted quite a lot on Mason Mount. He's 7.1. I mean, there are better, cheaper options at the moment in the likes of Jota and Lingard. If you obviously want to go for all 3, you can. Mount will play the majority of the games. Every other attacking asset from Chelsea, in my opinion, is a risk. From Werner to Pulisic, I think's done a hamstring again. Ziyech, you never really have it. Other than Mount, you don't really know who's going to occupy the front 3 positions in most games. And obviously, there's no guarantee that Mount will, because of they're still in the FA Cup semi-finals as well. Wing backs, just ignore. So I asked Ted again about sort of Alonso, Chilwell. I mean, Ted can't stand Alonso because he can't defend. But there's certain fixtures still to go where a little bit like at the weekend, Alonso may well get the favouritism because of what he can do offensively. Palace at the weekend might well be another one. It's just not worth the risk with the likes of Chilwell, Reece James. So, I mean, I agree with Ted. It's likely to be really good for me, price dependent. If price is no problem at all, then I would step up to Azpilicueta. But if it's a straight choice, I think it's probably worth coming down for the cheaper.
I wanted Mason Mount if I was to wildcard, but I just don't think I can fit him into my team. I'm going to end up with 3 cheapo-ish midfielders anyway, Rafinha, Lingard, and I think I classify Mount in that bracket of cheapo, so I don't need to have 4 cheap midfielders. I'm not spending the money anywhere. So
I take it Jota would be the other one for you,
yeah,
if you're
exactly.
classing him as cheap. Okay, yeah.
So I'm not really bothered about saving the money. So then I've got Kevin De Bruyne and Fernandes. Mount doesn't fit into me, into my squad at the moment. Leeds, Sheffield United. They came through in the end, did Leeds. I didn't get to watch this game. Did you enjoy it?
Pitch is a bit better. I always enjoy Leeds. I think the really fascinating one for me is Rafinha. I mean, he's obviously the fascinating one, but in terms of what I do this week, my instinct is I'm probably going to hold him. And I'm probably going to take the chance of benching him against Manchester City and Liverpool, and then use him from then onwards, from the Manchester United game onwards, because obviously Tottenham and City blank in game week 33. So any player I've got, I need in that particular game week. That's probably what I'm likely to do. Their last 5 are really attractive: Brighton, Tottenham, Burnley, Southampton, West Brom. And he's just a gem. He's so much fun to own. Every week, he could get a return of points somewhere between 2 and 22. The amount of chances he creates, positions he gets. Even look at the Jagielka's winning goal. If Jagielka doesn't score the own goal, Rafinha's got to tap in at the back post. Not the sort of thing you'll see on XG stats. He's a gem of a player. I feel like he could probably go and play for Liverpool, Man City next year, any of these teams, and definitely be a first choice starter. He's what he's got with the talent and ability is the work ethic is incredible. I said this to you, I think after the Fulham game, when I said like he's like Mahrez on drugs. He seems to get stronger the longer games goes on. There's one or two things with his final pass I find a little bit frustrating sometimes, where I think you can go and kill someone on your own here and stuff. But he's a brilliant player to own. It's just fun. We had a question on our Patreon podcast yesterday. I want some differentials for the running because I'm bored of what's happening. I want some fun. Now, Rafinha, he's not going to be a huge differential for you, but he's 16.2% owned overall. And
still low. I think that's still low.
Over the next couple of weeks, because of the fixtures they've got, that's more likely to decrease rather than increase, I'd suggest. I think he's a brilliant asset for that potential running. You can see Leeds as well. Leeds, as we know, they don't change the way they play, right? So once relegation is completely off the table, well, it now is. But obviously, there's pressure. You have to do certain things in games like City, Liverpool. The Manchester United game is their big game. So you know it's going to be tense. It doesn't mean there can't be goals in it. It was 6-2 last time, right? Those last 5 games, if the pressure's off the other teams as well, say like Brighton, Burnley, Southampton, have all got nothing to play for, they could be car crash games.
Yeah.
Burnley are far more open than what we're used to with them.
Yeah, sure.
Brighton obviously played really well at Ellen Road earlier in the season, put in a real defensive performance. But if they do well over the next few and pull themselves out of trouble, they've got Sheffield United the week before they play Leeds. Could be a far more open game. Brighton are playing more open generally over the last couple of weeks anyway. I think on that running, I want him. It's probably more a case of, am I happy to, because I haven't got a lot of value built up on him. So I could let him go and get him back quite easily. Would I be happy to perhaps not put him in now, go with a 3-5-2, which I think probably means forcing in an extra power player, and then coming back down to him, say game week 34, and then going up with one of the forwards, for example. That's probably what the decision is, because I definitely want him for those final 5 games. He's just a brilliant FPL asset, and he's enjoyable to own. Other than that, though, I think generally it's probably time to bin your Leeds players.
Yeah, it was exactly what I was going to lean into. I've got quite a dilemma, though. So I own 3 Leeds. Stuart Dallas, I bought at 4.5. He's now 5.1. So I've had a massive price rise on him. To be fair, I could take my 4.8 million and run with him. Same with Patrick Bamford, bought at 6.2. He's now at 6.7. There's another 0.3 there as well. Rafinha 5.4 and he's now 5.7, less of a price rise there. I can stomach that. So Rafinha is likely to stay and the other 2 are likely to go in the order of Dallas is almost definitely gone and Bamford is probably gone.
If I got in Dallas at 4.5, I'd be very tempted to hold.
It depends what I do. Yeah, it depends what I do with my other transfers. And the thing with Stuart Dallas is he's quite often OOP as well, where he pushes forward and there's more of
how he didn't score in this game. Yeah. He played in midfield again.
Yeah.
A lot of Leeds fans thought Alioski would come out the team because he's agreed to go to Galatasaray.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
they're really pissed off.
Yeah, but he's still in the team at the moment, right? And Leeds have a real shortage of players that can play in front of Phillips. Like Click's had COVID, he's been in and out. Roberts is not a great player. Rodrigo's been in and out the team with injuries. I mean, he took Bamford off with half hour to go on Saturday, right? So I think Bamford would be a definite bin. Dallas, if you've got the real value in, I could definitely see the idea behind keeping him. You look at it and go, what can you get better than that for the same price at 4.5 million? Well, it's not 4.5 million. It's like 4.7 or
No,
something.
I get
like
4.8 if I sell Dallas. I get 4.8.
Yeah, true. But then I think once you come off Dallas, having bought at that value, psychologically, you wouldn't go back for that running.
No,
I don't think.
No. Yeah, I get that. It's an interesting strategy for sure.
It depends what the rest of your defense is, right? But if you end up with someone like him having to come into your team, you probably don't want him in the team for Man City away this particular weekend. But otherwise, look, if he ends up playing for you against Liverpool, it's all right, mate. Because if he plays in midfield again, he will have shots on goal.
Leicester 0, Man City 2.
Sheffield United, we definitely can skip.
Yeah. I mean, they're getting relegated, and there's nothing to see there at all, other than obviously potentially targeting teams that are playing against them.
It's a fair point to add. Is pre-activating the wild card, my early thoughts were, I'm probably going to captain Aubameyang at Sheffield United and go for it. I am not doing that now.
We'll get to them in about 5 minutes, mate. Maybe a bit less. Leicester 0, Man City 2. A lot of people got hurt by rotation here. Didn't get hurt by rotation, and the likes of Gundogan, Cancelo obviously not playing, but then obviously not coming off the bench either. So you're getting your substitute appearances coming on anyway, which is better than the 1-pointer trickling in. City being City, I just think they controlled the game, controlled the tempo. Kevin De Bruyne pulling the strings. He could have hauled big time as well, hitting the bar with a free kick. Phenomenally struck ball. Some of his passing, just
On the second goal, we were speaking about it yesterday, weren't we? Fucking brilliant.
What a through ball. What a through ball. So, I like the fact that he's warming up nicely because I don't think a lot of people are going to go to Kevin De Bruyne on Wildcard. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I don't think a lot will. And his ownership is reasonably low. So I think he could pull in a couple of decent performances.
I'm not going KDB. I'd look at it at the moment and go, well, they've got a blank coming up in game week 33. They've got Leeds, obviously, this weekend sandwiched between the Dortmund games. Then obviously Villa the midweek afterwards, because of where it lands, probably quite a strong team. But it's 3 days after they play Tottenham in the Carabao Cup final. They've also got the FA Cup semi-final with Chelsea to play. I think with De Bruyne, listen, money no object. Any of us would probably have him in the team because of his capability. But I don't see at the moment still how the justification would be there to pay 5 million more for De Bruyne over Gundogan, which is effectively what we're talking. I couldn't justify that. So it's more a case for me, does Gundogan stay or go? And I think Gundogan's going to go. And purely because I think if I want him back, that's easy as. So it's probably that. The choice for who my fifth midfielder is going to be. Is it Gundogan or Rafinha? Am I happy to go Rafinha and know that he's ready for the end? Or do I keep Gundogan, part because I've got the value? But, I mean, they don't play in 33 as well. So if you're going City and Tottenham players, if you want to hammer in 3 Tottenham players for the double in 32, you can't hammer too hard into Manchester City because neither team plays in 33. You're going to leave yourself with your trousers pulled down. So I think for me at the moment, I'm just going to go Diaz. Stones has gone for me. I'm just going to go Diaz. He seems to play nearly every game anyway, regardless.
He put in a couple of good tackles.
I'm going to do that and then know that come game week 34 or so, if I want to attack another City player, particularly say if they're out of the Champions League, then I can. I think that's what I'm more likely to do.
Now I'm gonna hold De Bruyne, and it's not value related necessarily because I bought him 11.8. He's 11.9, so I can chop and change. But I'm happy to keep him for the Leeds and Villa games, which could be, like you mentioned, big scoring. Villa not looking great, and I'll sell him in game week 33. And there's loads of options of where I could go, like Salah, who've got Newcastle at home that week. Is an easy option as long as I keep enough money to make that move. It's not a lot of money really, so I'll keep him for the next 2, and then move him on for that week. I don't want to leave that much money on the bench that week, so even if it's for a hit, I'd move him on that week in game week 33. Yeah. Any thoughts on Leicester assets?
Yes. They were bad. Let's be honest about it. Very negative at the weekend, although very similar tactics in the first half of the Etihad early in the season worked very well. I mean, a major difference this time being that City centre-back pairing was Diaz and Laporte rather than Garcia and Aki makes quite a bit of difference. City shut down the game quite a lot by playing Fernandinho with Rodri as well. So they were very conscious of what Leicester could do winning the ball back. They shut down Perez's space in behind Iheanacho and Vardy. The only thing City left open really was kind of if Tielemans could create, and with no real natural width because they really got sucked into a back five, there wasn't really ways out for Leicester, which is why I really fancied City to win the game comfortably anyway, irrespective of what lineup they picked. But Leicester, yes, I'm very interested. I could very easily go Iheanacho and Vardy. I think Iheanacho is a definite for me. Vardy is probably dependent on which other big hitters I go for, but could easily come with. I really like the idea of going for Maddison because I think because he hasn't started recently, most people will be off. I can see him coming back in for the West Ham game. It didn't surprise me that he was left out for the Man City game. Defensively, Pereira, Castagne, Schmeichel, probably all considerations for me. The only concern I have on Iheanacho, he's not through Maddison, because I think Maddison will come back in for Perez because Iheanacho's been in too good form. You can't just look at one game against Man City and say, oh, yeah, I'm worried about him now. He's the return of Harvey Barnes. I don't know what they do with the system once Barnes is fit, but Roger said pre-City, it's still going to be a few weeks away. And what I really want of Leicester is the immediate, right? Not obviously so much
the
West Ham.
4 or 5 fixtures after West Ham.
It's not so much the West Ham on Sunday. I can take or leave that. But the 4 fixtures afterwards, West Brom, Palace, Southampton, Newcastle. Yeah, I definitely want some of that. And I can... I'd be surprised, I think, come Friday if I don't have Vardy, Andy and Asho, and I think I'll have a third player. I think if I go with that combination, I'm probably more likely to go a defensive one, either Pereira or Schmeichel rather than Maddison. But I think if I don't go Vardy, I'll probably go Maddison. I could well change it up, actually, because I just think it'd be such a differdifferential.
Yeah, he definitely will be. I mean, he went on a great run when he came back from injury earlier in the season. He was scoring and assists week in, week out. So, yeah, look, we know what Maddison can create. He's going to want to try and make a late play for the Euros, no doubt. I think it's going to be difficult for him to get into the squad, but I like keeping an eye on players that think they might be able to get on the plane. So he is one that I would consider. For me, I think it's just going to be Iheanacho is the only one that ends up making it into my squad for the remainder of the season. And if he ends up being benched, he ends up being benched. You know, I think Iheanacho is a really good shout, a really good price. At the moment, none of the others, and with Man City, Ruben Diaz is sticking. Cancelo's a tough one, you know. Cancelo,
he could easily not play the next 2 league games, and that's not a slight on him. That goes for almost any City player, and that's part of it. You got 2 games to switch it up now. Okay, Leeds, Villa. They're not the hardest of fixtures. We're also not the easiest. I don't see City getting sort of 5 6s in these 2 fixtures. And then they blank in 33 as well. So
Cancelo's slightly gone for me. I paid 5.5 for him and he's worth 6, whereas Diaz, I paid 6.1 and he's worth 6.1. But I'd rather lose the value in Cancelo and keep the consistency of Ruben Diaz. So for me, that value's not...
The problem with these players like Cancelo, I think many of us are probably... those who are wildcarding are probably looking at taking the chances on a few players who you know are also rotation risks, i.e. Rudiger at some point will miss a game somewhere if Chelsea continue to progress in the Cups, etc. So you add in this player like Cancelo, who you've got no certainty about any given week. Suddenly you could very easily be down to 10 players or so, depending on what you pick. Because the defensive ones, if they get left out, they're probably not getting brought into the game at all, right? So you probably really are ending up with 10 if you miss 3 of them, for example. So I think I'm just going to go Diaz. And I well know that at some point he'll miss a league game as well. I don't think he missed Leeds at the weekend, though.
No.
If he missed Leeds at the weekend, I wouldn't fancy City for a clean sheet at all in that fixture.
Let's talk about Arsenal 0, Liverpool 3. Arsenal fans are obviously very disappointed by that performance. I can understand why as well. But, I mean, they've just come off the back of beating you lot. A great recovery, scoring 3 goals against us with a very good, polished performance. And I think that's why they're so disappointed that it's ended up being so flat and rubbish and meh.
If my team hadn't been so shite on Sunday as well, I'd have ripped these lot apart. They were disgraceful, to put it bluntly. It reminded me of watching Tottenham look hopeless against a big opponent just without Kane and Son. Because it was literally no threat whatsoever from Arsenal. They did nothing. It did nothing. Now, there are some factors behind that. Saka and Smith Rowe, if you're comparing, say, the Tottenham and Liverpool games for Arsenal's perspective, those two bring real energy to the team. And for whatever reason, Odegaard was nowhere. He was just nowhere in the game. I also think, and you can laugh at the back if you want to, Xhaka, massive miss for Arsenal. I was really shocked. We knew that there was a chance he was going to miss out for illness. I was really shocked to see that it was Ceballos rather than El Neni, because Ceballos is a footballer, right? He's not a protector. He's not a presser. You need him to fill the game. And Arsenal had too many players like that on the pitch. Ceballos, Odegaard, Aubameyang. Too many players who need to fill the game, don't kind of create their own energy. El Neni's strength is a good presser. He's not brilliant on the ball, but he's a good presser. We saw that really well highlighted. Him and Partey, I think, played together at Old Trafford earlier in the season. They were really good that day, Arsenal. I assumed it would be El Neni. And I can only think that it wasn't because of that. Because he thought, well, I don't want to press, so I want us to be better when we've got the ball. And when we previewed the game with Adam and Dan, I said I fancied Arsenal to win. Because I felt the key to the game was, could Arsenal break Liverpool's press like they tried to do at Anfield earlier in the season? And because of Liverpool's issues at the moment, there's every chance they would do well. There's a couple of things that happened, which is why it never happened. Arsenal couldn't get any tempo into their play when they tried to play through lines. It's hard to even remember them trying to do so, or even getting more than 3 or 4 passes together in a row unless it was backwards. And the best player on the pitch by a distance was Fabinho, who has certainly fixed some of Liverpool's problems at the moment, going back into midfield. It was beast mode. It was really, really good for Liverpool. Cut off all the space around Odegaard, the ugly things that you don't watch if you're following the ball. Really had his eye on him a lot, put in a top display. What I don't know from Liverpool's perspective is, because of the 2 games they've had, Wolves and Arsenal, if we've really got the answer that it's simplistic, that they had 2 major problems and putting Fabinho at the back didn't solve it because it left them with a hole in midfield. If putting Fabinho at the back means that they've just got the hole at the back now and they just deal with it, and Phillips and Kabak are obviously working on a partnership. And the reason I don't know if it's fixed yet is because Wolves can be Wolves. Although Wolves probably should have got something against Liverpool 3 weeks ago, and Arsenal were just hopeless on Saturday. And I don't know, in fairness to them, if Smith Rowe and Saka had been in the team, I think it would have been a more interesting game, just because Arsenal would have had more energy. And defensively, there were so many blunders. Lost, obviously, Kieran Tierney to injury as well. But we have to be aware Arsenal do have this incredible run of fixtures coming up. Now, David Luiz is out for a couple of weeks. He's had surgery. It's believed he'll be back in a few weeks. I'm possibly going to punt on Rob Holding very short term. 4.2 million. We've got Sheffield United, Fulham in the next 2. I think I'll probably get at least Sheffield United, Fulham and Everton. Holding, I'm certain that will play every game for Arsenal in the Premier League and Europa League until David Luiz is fit, because he's the only one there who'll play right-sided centre-back. It will be Gabriel or Mari at left-sided. I'd be amazed if you put Gabriel and Mari together. He's never done it so far, and I don't expect him to do so in the upcoming games. So I think Holding's a cheeky punt. It's just a case of, do I want to book that in for a transfer? Or, worst-case scenario, we get to the other side of the blank game week in 33, and he loses his place, and I've got a 4.2 million defender sitting on the bench. Is it a disaster?
Are you still planning? I don't want to give too like wildcard away. On the opposition, we've got Nat Phillips, who was 3.9 and has gone up to 4.0 now. So are you going to carry him as well into your wildcard potentially?
I think he's been 4 for a while. He's likely to go 4.1 this week.
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
That's right.
I thought he was 3.9 earlier in the week. Sorry, my bad. Are you likely to carry both through? Because now you've got 2 cheap defenders. Now, if you go back to classic FPL, it's like your free substitutes. Fuck it, find the cheapest shit you can. And here's a situation where it's not the worst shit that you can find. I mean, you've got a Liverpool centre-back and an Arsenal centre-back, 8.2 between the 2 of them, and then pile in up front. Why not?
You don't have to give my wild card away because I don't know what it's going to be yet. Anyway,
no, but I mean, I know that these are names that you mentioned. Like, I'm more curious. two cheap midfielders, defenders. My bad. Worth it?
I mean, there's every case to say you could go something like Phillips, Holding. Tyreek Mitchell is 3.8 on the verge of 3.7. Incredibly, you could go those three. Holding will definitely play for you. Phillips will definitely play for you at the moment. You would think. And then you've got two. You can have two more powerful ones. That going that sort of route possibly allows you to go something like Azpilicueta and Trent, for example. So I'm thinking Jota is 100%. As long as he gets through the Real Madrid game unscathed, Jota is 100% going to be in my wild card. I may even captain him this coming week, by the way. And I think it's probably 2 from 3: Salah, Alexander-Arnold, Phillips. What comes with for me? I'd be very surprised if I don't end up with Phillips, because I think I'd rather leave the money. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up 100 double defensive, mate, Trent and Phillips. It's a little bit different in the sense if you start smelling the problem, you just leave Phillips out, don't you? And go, okay, fine, I'll swing with Trent as an attacking asset. I don't know which way that's going to play out for me yet, but I think it's 3 from 4 is what will be the most popular for most people wildcard. I think most people wildcard this week will end up with 3 Liverpool players in their team by the week.
Mine was Trent and Jota as starters, and Nat Phillips is there for me if I need to save some money and just pad out my squad basically. So he's there, but Trent is the one that you can see in his face. He falls into that same category, like I mentioned earlier with James Maddison, where he obviously got left out of the England squad. He's definitely going to want to go to the Euros this summer. He's gonna up his game to just make sure he gets on that plane. I can't see any circumstance where he doesn't go to the Euros. I mean, it'll be insane if he gets dropped, because especially if he performs between now and the end of the season.
I can. That's because neither you or I are picking the squad.
Yeah, I guess true.
Gareth Southgate picked 3 right backs basically in his last squad, and Trent wasn't one of them. So why do people suddenly think that because he's played well for Liverpool, Arsenal, that suddenly Southgate's going to leave out 2 of those right backs and put Trent back in? And to be honest, I'd get the opinion that irrespective of what Trent does over the next 7-8 game weeks, he probably won't be in that final squad. But I think Southgate's made his mind up that he's not going to go that way. Would he be in my squad? 100% if we're playing a back 4. If it's a back 3, no, I wouldn't take him. But I presume England are going to play one of the 2 systems. In a back 4, for me, Trent's still in the team. Yeah, as first choice right back. In a back 3, I wouldn't bother.
No. So for the listeners that don't know about our Patreon, we have a paid Patreon sign up service where we do an additional podcast each and every day of the week. On Fridays, we do kind of a team reveal differential show where we talk about the upcoming fixtures and exactly James and my transfers. And in that show, each and every Friday, we run down the fixtures and predict the scores. 2 weeks ago, Arsenal West Ham, James predicted a 0-0 bore draw, ended up being 3-3. And this week, we thought that Southampton Burnley, I say you, would just play out a draw because it would suit both teams to just be a little bit further away from the relegation zone. Can you predict my team to be 0-0 each and every week? Because this ended up being 3-2.
I don't need to. Your game's having loads of goals anyway, so I don't need to.
Yeah, it's funny.
To be honest, I said to you offline, I said, I might predict Tottenham to be 0-0 every week. Unfortunately, I've seen us defend, so I know that'd just be a blatant lie.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
No, this was such a good game, Southampton and Burnley. And I think I was seeing lots of comments during the game of, I can't believe this is so enjoyable and stuff like that. And I think it goes back to a little bit what we've said the last couple of weeks about Burnley. And the fact it is changing. They are trying to play a more progressive footballing style. They are trying to press higher up the pitch. And it's creating 2 things. One, it's making them offensively a little bit better. But B, if you get beyond the midfield 4, you're at the back 4, and the back 4 are in trouble. If you're running at them, you only have to look at the second goal scored by Danny Ings. So it would put me right off Burnley defensive players at the moment. They've not got the worst running, and they've got games in there such as Newcastle, Wolves, Fulham, Sheffield United, and you think, yeah, do you know what? They could put 4 clean sheets in that period. And as Jack Turfy-Topper always says to us, they'll keep clean sheets in games you don't expect. But to be honest, the only Burnley player that would interest me right now is Vidra, who's 4.8 million And I think I like the idea that I'd be wildcarding straight into Newcastle at home. And I like the idea that it's cheap enough that if it doesn't work out, I'm pretty much going 3-5-2, aren't I? But I think it's how many players do I want to take with me that's a risk? I don't think Vidra actually is starting spot. I don't think it is a risk at the moment because we know when they're doing all right, Dyche won't change them.
Yeah.
And okay, they, as Dyche said himself, they basically went to sleep in the final 15 minutes of the first half. But Wood and Vidra both scored, right? There isn't a need for him to change that position, I don't think. I mean, Wood could have had a haul here, actually. It's the first time probably since game week 2 I thought Chris Wood could really take off here. But I think Vidra would be worth the saving if you wanted one of the two. And at 4.8, he's not out of my thinking. I think if I want to force in something like, and it can be done, Salah, Fernandes, Kane and Son, then I think someone like Vidra probably ends up coming with me, actually, if I decide that's the way I want and force Trent in as well. Then I think someone like Vidra really comes into my thinking, actually. And I'd start him at the weekend against Newcastle rather than, say, Rafinha against Manchester City. I think Vidra will score this weekend. There you go. If you want a 1 week punt for this week, there it is, Vidra. He's not out of my thinking. Otherwise, Burnley, no.
Southampton are an interesting one, mind on the flip side. I would love to get Danny Ings in on wildcard. I think he's coming into form. He's looking good. He's looking sharp. But I can't justify. I mean, the West Brom away fixture this weekend, yeah, great. But after that, Tottenham, blank, Leicester, Liverpool. It's just 4 game weeks of, don't want him. So I can't justify going to any Southampton player, really, just with the West Brom game in mind, not on wildcard. Doesn't make sense. I want to be planning a little bit longer term. So frustratingly, I probably end up with no Southampton on wildcard. But when Nathan Redmond is in the team, Walcott, Armstrong, they've got creativity in behind Ings. So I think he will score goals between now and the end of the season. But 8.4 million for me, can't afford it.
Yep, understand that. Unfortunately for Southampton players, you really would be grouping them with Tottenham, Manchester City players because of the blanking 33. Now, as we said previously, there is a small possibility that Fulham and Southampton for 36, should Southampton beat Leicester in the FA Cup semi-final, could get brought forward. But you're not going to know that till you're actually in your planning for game week 33. So you can't think that way. They well deserve to win, by the way. Ings looked really sharp. He didn't look like someone who'd been out for 3-4 weeks or so. I was surprised that Che Adams was left out. Obviously, he had the confidence of the goal against Scotland. He's been playing much better prior to the international break as well. Redmond was lively. I thought Walcott underwhelmed, actually, but he gives them real energy from deeper positions and in wide spaces. Really like Armstrong. Really good player. We'll be talking about in game week 1 again next season. I'm
no doubt. I mean, he was in both he was 5.5 million at the start of the season, wasn't he?
Right up until injury in the final week before the deadline, he was going to be in our teams, I think. And I bet we'll be talking about him again in the summer because I think he'll be a similar price. And all these others that are around there at the moment, which is why you wouldn't consider him, they're all going to get the hike, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. For sure. The one Southampton player I'm considering is the goalkeeper. Fraser Forster. It's 4 million. It might have even gone to 4-1 last night. If not, it's going to probably happen at some point this week. I think he could lose the spot at any point to McCarthy. He's probably more looking at it and going, ideally, I'd go Lloris and Forster. I can't, to cover 32, go, right, well, I'll play Lloris in most weeks. I'll have Forster. He's the 4.0 as backup. But obviously, because they're both blanking 33, you can't take that route. I think I'll end up with Forster if I end up going with a goalkeeper that I end up paying a bit more money for than I think is correct. So if I end up going with, say, Leno, because of Arsenal's fixture run, I'd look at the fixtures and go, in spite of them and how much they can annoy, and I can hear Adam Pritchard at 3-5 saying, James, just avoid Arsenal's defence. Yeah, I could end up with like Leno and Holding, for example, as a bit of a differential. I think if I go down that route, I'd look at Leno and go, I am not leaving him out with them Arsenal fixtures. Ironically, the only one might be if or when doubles happen for Southampton, and they could still have 2 doubles if they beat Leicester in that semi-final. So I could see me going a combination of something like Leno and Forster, Can't see me paying 5.3 for Patricio. Fuck that. Flappy might be another one. Kasper Schmeichel of Leicester. If I go for one of these type of goalkeepers, I think Forster probably comes with me.
I'm holding Mendy at the moment, and looking at Chelsea's fixtures, the only week where I would not play Mendy would be game week 35, which is against Manchester City away.
Southampton have Liverpool.
Yeah, so Forster for me doesn't do it. But I've got Areola in my squad already, and they're playing Burnley at home that week. So if I wanted to drop Mendy for that City away game and just play Areola, that's fine. So I think I'll end up with Mendy and Areola, to be honest. Forster's attractive just because of that $500,000. But if I don't need the money, then I can go without.
Ironically, though, of course, that 35 could end up being a double game week for both Chelsea and Southampton, depending on how fixtures are moved and what the FA Cup semi-final results look like. If you really thought that Chelsea were going to beat Manchester City, or let's put it a different way, if you thought one of them was going to get to the final and not the other one, a combination like Mendy and Forster could work really nicely, actually. But I can't see that. I can't see the bravery in predicting the FA Cup semi-final results. We can all say, yeah, okay, City and Leicester is the most likely final. But what happened in the FA Cup semi-finals last year? I think the two lesser fancy teams won, didn't they?
They
Arsenal
did.
And Chelsea, respectively.
Yep. Aston Villa 3, Fulham 1. Back to winning ways for Aston Villa, although Fulham did give them a scare and went ahead.
I am so pleased that you skipped the Tottenham game. Thanks, mate.
Oh, shit. I didn't even realise. Let's rewind a little bit. Getting ahead of myself.
Made my day, mate.
I'm going to just sit back and pop the popcorn. I didn't watch the game in detail, but I kind of dipped in and dipped out. But when it went to 2-1, you controlled the game without the conviction of me thinking that
controlled what?
On. It was just neat passing, but it never felt, I always thought, you know what, it's more likely to go 2-2 than it is 3-1 Spurs. And to have Willock as the player that scores the equalising goal on loan from your rivals. Yeah. And we'll save it for Tottenham, but I don't understand what comes out of your manager's mouth sometimes. Same coach, different players. I have to give a shout out to Yusuf. I don't know if you remember Yusuf, who won FPL a couple of years ago.
Oh, I saw his tweet. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Fantastic tweet. Yeah.
What did the tweet say?
So yeah, we may as well. I'm working on the assumption people have seen it. So he said he put out that people ask him, like, Yusuf, you won FPL, and yet since then you've never even come close. What's going on? He said, same coach, different players.
Yeah, same coach, different players. So just to cover this off briefly, because we're going to smash it out in our Tottenham podcast later on Patreon. But is he saying, therefore, that he was never a good coach and it was only because of players like Terry, Ramos, Lucio, Makaleli, etc., that he won the shit that he did? Sorry, same coach, different players. You're saying to me you can't coach these players to be better? You're on £15 million a year. Did he not say after Tottenham lost at West Ham that he was the best manager in the world, basically?
Yeah, I mean...
This guy, right?
It's funny. It's amusing to watch from the sidelines. But
same coach, different players. It's a different coach, same players. Got to a Champions League final 2 years ago.
Well said. I think here Newcastle did really well. It's still a continuation of a change in style of play, but in the first 30 minutes they were really good. How Dwight Gale didn't score in the first 10-15 minutes, and that he should have been up by more. Harry Kane doing Harry Kane things. Bit fortunate. I mean, the ricochets on the first goal, but he finished it well, and the second goal he took really well. Kane seems to be dragging you into the top four in any which way that he possibly can.
We've got no chance of finishing top four.
I don't think you have, but if you do, it'll be because of Harry Kane's goals. No doubt about that.
We ain't, listen, whoever finishes fourth is the team that will be the most consistent on the running. And I'm pretty sure that Liverpool, Chelsea and West Ham will all be more consistent than Tottenham in the running. Tottenham, I think, need to win 7 of 8 games. So to say no chance is incorrect, but I think we'd need to win 7 of 8 games to finish in the top 4. And I can't see it because you can't win games like this.
That's a monster run.
Newcastle had 20 efforts and got an XG of over 4. it's very easy, again, I repeat what I've said a few times, very easy to say the defence is useless. Right, for a team to have that many efforts on goal, it has to get beyond the midfield and get into the penalty box in the first instance. You can't just blame the back four. Listen, the first goal was so ridiculous. Tanganga can't clear the ball. Sanchez can't clear the ball. Højbjerg bottles the tackle. I went to shoot every single one of them. But there are lots of things that happen on other occasions, which why Newcastle getting so many balls into the penalty area over and over again. You're right what you say, because Newcastle had a spell in the second half and then it calmed down. And for 10 minutes, Newcastle didn't see the ball. Kill them off. And I knew when Kane missed the chance for the third and hit the post, we were still well in trouble. Because we're incapable of defending situations when it gets in and around our penalty area. Reguilon had a fucking nightmare. Murphy gave him all sorts of trouble. Murphy and Richie at 4.9 could be really interesting. Actually, no one's going to get them, but I promise you they could be interesting over the next few weeks. I like that as wing backs for them. And that's what they did. The change system, they went to wing backs. He felt a little bit uncomfortable in certain stages because Dummett and Kraft played as obviously the wide centre backs either side of Jamal Lascelles. Newcastle well deserves something out of the game. I think the back three probably sticks. I don't know if Graham Jones, and we'll say Graham Jones because we know he's doing the team rather than Steve Bruce at the moment. I don't know if he decided back three because he thought Bale and Son will play in the wide areas and playing the wing backs will really push them to go deep. And it didn't really happen. There were so many flaws in that Tottenham game. I'll save them for a different day. For FPL, Kane, obvious. Captaincy, in spite of how shite we are, he's a captaincy option for a number of game weeks that are still to come, including obviously the double in 32. The double in 32 means I almost definitely take Heung-min Son with me. He's very capable. I mean, he scored 4 the last time he played Southampton. That's the second game in the double. I think the spacing of the games, generally speaking, we'll be playing Everton Friday, Southampton Wednesday, and then the Man City final is on the Sunday. I don't buy into the idea of rotation because at the moment, particularly if Tottenham did get a good result against Manchester United at the weekend, which I don't expect, by the way, don't hesitate to captain Bruno at the weekend if you're feeling it. Then I don't see the rotation idea for people like Reguilon. I think Reguilon will play both games, but he won't if he continues to play like he played at Newcastle. He had a shocker on Sunday, really, really bad. It looks like he wants to be somewhere else. But while Ben Davies is out, I don't really see what the alternative is. What's he going to do? Play Tanganga at left back and Ori at right back? Yeah, it's a possibility. But against teams like Southampton or Everton, I don't see him doing that. I could see him doing it. He'd probably be more likely to do that against Manchester United than against Southampton or Everton, in my opinion. So I think if you want the third Spurs player, my advice would be Reguilon or Lloris. And I wouldn't try and get clever about anybody else. Like, forget more, right? If you've got Bale, it's 100% sale now.
You just said there, talking about Newcastle, that you know that Graham Jones is picking the team. How do you know?
I know that he's doing the tactics. I don't know if he's picking the team.
Okay, fine. Sorry, I thought you mentioned there that he was doing the team, because if he's doing the team and doing the tactics, what the fuck's the point in Steve Bruce even being there?
Well, I think Newcastle fans can answer that. I have to say, it was interesting looking through my timeline on Sunday once the teams were announced. And obviously Tottenham picked the same team. It was a 4-4-2 again with Vinicius up. Vinicius is never the answer no matter what the question is, right? He's not good enough. No way is he good enough.
Half time, didn't he? So,
and I think Mourinho's now got his excuse, like Lucas Moura wasn't great and had been brilliant prior to the international break. He's now got his excuse to be bringing other players back into the team, I think. So that won't stick. But it was interesting looking at Newcastle fans' comments in terms of what their expectations were from the game once they see the team. They were all expecting to get battered. And I think that's part of the point. You have to remember, it's a Newcastle team without their two best players. Admittedly, St. Maximin came on as sub. No Callum Wilson either. And we've let that amount of efforts on our goal. But don't worry, we've got the best defensive coach in the world. So he tells us. Or he can't coach players anymore. I'm confused.
Let's move on before something, I see steam come out your head or something explodes.
It's coming.
Aston Villa 3, Fulham 1. And I did start talking about this game, but Villa finally get back to winning ways, although Fulham did give them a scare. And I just feel for Fulham every single week. They put themselves in an all right position and it just seems to drift away. They're getting relegated, I'm afraid.
Longer term listeners will know that when Tottenham have a bad day, I invariably watch other games, but I'm watching them and I'm not really there. And that's kind of what happened to me for the Villa-Fulham game and United-Brighton game. But I was so gutted for Fulham in the sense that once they went ahead, I had zero doubt that they were going to go on and win the game. They panicked a bit. I mean, Tyrone Mings makes obviously a massive error for Mitrovic's goal, but it's a little bit of bravery in doing something different, i.e. he overlapped target, or more of an underlap actually, that actually created a little bit of space. But what's Mings doing up here and stuff? Trezeguet is a player who finds space quite well, equalises. He took the second goal really well also. But then things like that, after Villa equalised, I think they got caught between do we try and win this game again, or is a draw still a decent result? And it's worth saying Fulham had lost in 8 away games previously. It's quite impressive. But then things like Adebayo, who's been so good for them this year, he panics, doesn't he? He absolutely panics with Keenan Davis on him for the second goal. And then, all right, they're trying to open themselves up and they get done for the third goal as well. It wasn't a 3-1 game. I felt like Villa turned the game around without doing anything spectacular. I think the news of Lookman's potential hamstring injury is mortal for Fulham. I think what might happen, I think they might switch system again and go to a back three and play Aino in with Anderson and Adebayo. Get Robinson back in the team at left wing back, play Tete at right wing back. And I can see him possibly even playing Madra and Mitrovic together. Mitrovic done really well in the international break. I said on my stream on Saturday, if there was a time he was going to come back in, it was this. And look, he's obviously ended up scoring Fulham's goal. Although I think given the opportunity, you were right, would have ended up finishing it 1-on-1 in that position, given that present from Mings. So I can see him doing something like that, playing sort of Reed and Lamina and perhaps Loftus-Cheek in the hole behind Mitrovic and Madra and getting the two wing-backs quite high. That might be a possibility. Cavallero and the like don't inspire you that they're going to get goals and stuff. And I think that's the difference. That's why I think Mitrovic will stay in the team. The problem is they've also got this blank in 33. So you're grouping them with Southampton, City and Tottenham players, basically, if you're trying to plan through. Therefore, I don't see the investment in Fulham personally. I wouldn't rule out keeping out Areola for me because he's done all right for me. Otherwise, I think they're off the table. And like yourself, I think they'll go down. But we had a long chat about this yesterday. And what I said to you then is obviously if they can get to game week 34, even if they're 6 points behind, the swing there where Fulham play Burnley and Southampton and Newcastle play Leicester and City, that's the point they can pull it back. So I think that's all they have to do in the next few weeks. Stay within 6 points and they've still got a chance, I think.
Yeah, it's the same for us last season where we were in the relegation zone, but we were within touching distance and we knew when our swing in fixtures was going to come for the last 5 or 6. And we were lucky enough to be able to capitalize on that and ended up staying up relatively comfortably. So yeah, I can see that. Just keep in touch, Fulham. Villa, surprisingly, despite the fact that they've got a fixture to get arranged against Everton and a double at some point that we don't know anything about, I'm not carrying any through Wildcard.
Where's Jack Grealish?
Do you know what I was thinking? You know, sometimes you've had situations where players have had like drugs bans or something's happened where they've been banned, but they don't want it to be in the public. So they just cover it up as an injury or something like that.
There's a Tottenham player I've suspected this about in the past. I'm not going to reveal the name now.
I feel like something's happened where it's an off the field issue where he's been suspended or banned or something's happened, but they just don't want to tell the whole story to us. So they're not, but he's not playing for some reason other than injury because it's taking the piss a bit now.
I don't think this is the case with Jack Grealish, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we're getting to the point now where conspiracy theories will start flying around a little bit.
The news is that he trained in midweek and that's legit. And then by reports, suddenly on Saturday, he didn't feel right and he doesn't play Sunday. Now, there's every chance that's true. Unfortunately, Dean Smith's created his own problem now where we don't fucking believe him. Quite simply.
Yeah.
And they're nothing special without him. I think the interesting one for Villa in terms of ownership, I think if you're on Wildcard and you've got Watkins and the like, you're binning. I think, to be honest, even if you're not, you're looking at Villa's next two and going Liverpool, Man City. This is the time you're coming off someone like Watkins, Konsa, these players. That's why a lot of people say, why are people wildcarding now? But if you're sitting there with combinations like Konsa, Target, Watkins, Dallas, Rafinha, Bamford, and you're looking at Villa and Leeds are about to walk into Liverpool and Man City respectively, that's a good reason in itself to be pulling the trigger. I think it's sell all of them, except I can understand if people got big value built up in Martinez, who's obviously done really well for them. And in these sort of fixtures, he's going to get save points. He's probably not going to get clean sheet points. But even that at the weekend, he's got 4 points against Fulham. I can definitely understand why owners would be very reluctant to get rid. I think my point would be, if you're really up with the value, use that value somewhere else in your team now. Because if you never sell him, the fact you got all that price up on him doesn't mean anything. It would only mean something if you wanted to buy him back. And if you sell with the fixtures they've got, you're probably not going to, unless they end up with a 37 double with Tottenham and Everton. But is it even still that appealing? We've got Chelsea in game week 38 as well. So I think, for me, I would say sell on Martin. I think that's what Adam Hopcroft, our Villa correspondent, basically said to us when we previewed the Fulham game, was sees no real reason to keep any Villa players. And I think even in Martinez's case, he's probably a sell.
Manchester United 2, Brighton 1. I'm just going to point out, James, we've been chatting for an hour. We've still got 3 games to get through. Usual shenanigans.
That happens, yeah.
3 minutes per game. Let's do it. Man United 2, Brighton 1. A really enjoyable watch. I thought Brighton were decent in the first half, especially when they attacked. I mean, as much as United kept possession, Brighton just seemed to have a bit more end product and actually ended up getting shots off and creating chances. Whereas United, it was all good, pretty build-up, but no real lack of penetration and getting actual chances away is how it felt. But eventually, they are good at dragging themselves through games.
I like the combination of Welbeck and Maupay for Brighton. They played the game very differently to how they played the Newcastle game. And I think there's always a flexibility in terms of how Brighton can approach games, often with the same personnel, which always makes them really interesting to watch. The key point in the game is obviously the potential penalty. If they get that, the Maguire potential foul on Welbeck, maybe they win the game rather than lose the game. But Brighton, I always find them one of the more fascinating teams in the league to watch. None of their players would be under consideration for me, but ironically, again, the goalkeeper. And the reason I highlight the goalkeeper, and this might bring people like Veltman into people's thinking. I'm obviously talking about Sanchez, not Matt Ryan and loan at Arsenal or anything like that. But for the likes of Sanchez and Veltman and these cheaper players, they've got one of the best fixtures in game week 33 in Sheffield United. And if you're one of these managers who doesn't like the benching headache week to week, if you want cover for that week and have players that you regularly go, he's my second, third sub, I don't want to have the headache of pick him, not pick him, Brighton's fixtures are hard enough elsewhere that it won't be much of a headache. And they have Sheffield United in game week 33. And that's why if I go with Lloris, I think I'll end up going with Sanchez just because he covers 33. And otherwise, then I'm not really making the week-to-week decision on it. He's improved massively as a goalkeeper, actually, from the first few times I saw him. It'd only be those cheap ones I think I'd consider for that reason, that alone. For United, I can't see much beyond me thinking about Luke Shaw and Bruno Fernandes. I think Fernandes falls down to what I want to do in 33. So again, obviously as a Kane owner and not wanting to sell him, and obviously Tottenham and City not playing, I look at 33 and I've got Liverpool against Newcastle, United at Leeds, and Leicester at home to Palace. I think there are alternatives to Fernandes in the likes of Salah, Jota, Vardy, for example. And if I'm not using Fernandes as a captain in 33, I'm looking at it and going, when am I? And therefore, am I literally just picking a player who's going to be in my team, who because of his ownership, I want him to fail most weeks anyway? I think it's probably more likely that he'll come with me and I'll get him in and make a decision after 33 because I think he's likely to be easier to sell than buy. And that's my probable take on it. And it might just be that if you look at other players like Jota and Vardy, owning them enough in 33 will be enough. And it might be, Fernandes against Leeds could go off. We well know that. And it might be that he's the best captaincy play that weekend. I just look at Liverpool, Newcastle, and Leicester against Palace and think they're such good alternatives. Otherwise, I don't see where I'm using Bruno as a captain. Therefore, do I want him? I feel like you're limiting the damage. I get that. People say, oh, you have to limit the damage. I get that. And that's possibly what I'll do to start with. But I'm not a fan of it. I'd rather swing somewhere else.
What's your value situation on Bruno?
Well, I don't own him, so it makes no difference to me.
Oh, right. Yeah, you sold him a little while ago, didn't you? So, yeah, fair play. I still own him at 10.8, 11.6 is his current price.
I'd keep.
I'm playing safe. I'm playing safe, mate. I'm sticking with for now, with Bruno. Luke Shaw is one that I want, but he's now like where I could have picked him up for 4.8, 4.9 a little while ago. He's at 5.3 now. And I don't know if I can just justify the extra or whether I want to punt that fourth defender spot for someone cheap. But Luke Shaw still is getting forward. He is still creating chances. So it's still a consideration. But
they've got, in my opinion, they've got a good 2 fixtures now and a good last 2 fixtures, subject to their involvement in Europe and perhaps what Fulham are doing come game week 37. The 4 in the middle, Leeds, Liverpool, Villa, Leicester, looks quite ugly from a defensive perspective to me. And I can, it's not impossible. I might just be completely without United by the end of this wild card, actually. I think that's a possibility. The big call for me is Fernandes.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Monday night games. Everton 1, Crystal Palace 1. I had no affiliation in this game from an FPL point of view. I only had it from a football point of view. So when Batshuayi scored, I punched the air.
Because
Everton. I don't want them to be picking up points,
yeah.
mate. I don't want them to be picking up points and keeping themselves in the hunt.
Do you think Everton are a serious threat to top 4?
No, but
why
there was a period.
That?
There was a period where was it right like November, December, January, where they were so consistent and got themselves back into the top 4. Like they started the season so well, had a little bit of a dip, but then found some form and were really consistent. And see, with the likes of Ancelotti, they'll grind out results and they'll get results when you least expect it. And they've got a really good run in as well. I mean, Brighton, Tottenham, Arsenal, Villa, West Ham, Sheffield United, Wolves. Then they finish up with City. That's difficult. But they've got the Villa game to squeeze in as well. So I think they've got games. They're capable of winning a lot of these games. James Rodriguez back in the team and looking like he's improving week in, week out. They got rid of Jordan Pickford because of injury. So defensively, Olsen pulled off a couple of decent saves.
Not sure on Olsen at all, actually.
He pulled off a couple of saves yesterday. Could be worse.
I can't see me having any Everton players on Wildcard.
No, me neither.
Can't see it at all. In spite of, it kind of falls the same category of Villa. Despite the fact there's that potential double down the line, I think it's more a come back and deal with it. If that's the case, if it works out, it's 37 and there's only 4 teams that have a double, fine. I can go and attack them if I want to at the time. But it could be they end up in a week where there's 12 teams that double. It could be they're one of 8 teams that plays in a blank game week. There's several different things that could happen. Go back to the podcast 2 weeks ago if you want some info on that. We will cover it a little bit again on Friday's pod. I can't see me going with any of them. Do you know how many home games Everton have won this season?
No, but I did see from Sean's tweet that he did say, will we ever win at home again?
Go on, guess.
3.
It's not quite that bad. But you have to ask how a team who's won 5 home games are actually still in contention to finish in the top 4.
Yeah.
For every club who's in and around the top 4, Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, West Ham, Everton themselves, are all looking at the reason that they're not there. Listen, the only one in and around there that's not been shit and disappointing is West Ham because of the expectation pre-season. Yeah. The rest have just not been consistent enough. You can make a case the expectation wasn't there for Everton either. But when you look at the home results, this could have easily been theirs just with consistency. Think of some of the shit home results they've had, mate. It's not like they've lost at home to every big team. They've had shit home results against a lot of average teams. Have lost at home to Fulham this year. Have lost at home to Burnley. These are just recent games. Newcastle lost to Fulham, Burnley and Newcastle at home in 2021 and just drawn at home to Palace as well. Listen, that's the sort of results you're getting. You don't deserve to finish in the top 4, which is ironic because they've won 9 away games. There's only 5 away games they haven't won.
Yeah.
Go figure, some of the league this year. Home games have got left Everton are Tottenham, Villa, Sheffield United, Wolves. Now, if I look at all 4 of them home games, I'd say I think there's probably 10 points for them there. The away games, Brighton, Arsenal, West Ham, Villa and City, I don't think there's a lot, ironically. I'd say there's probably 5 to 6 points in them away games for them. It's not going to be enough.
No.
And I know in theory, they feel like they're close, but I think Liverpool and Chelsea know now they're in a real race. You know you've got a chance and are really going and trying to win games. I just can't see Everton having the consistency to be in and around it. If they can get to the final 3 or 4 games and still have that Villa double left and are within an earshot, then they've got half a chance. I just don't see it, personally.
Let's wrap up talking about the final game. Wolves 2, West Ham 3. Almost blew a 3-0 lead 2 weeks in a row.
Just tell us, when Silva scored, how much did you shit yourself?
Not massively. I actually thought Wolves created more in the first half than they did in the second half. I mean, the first half, they had a number of good chances. In the second half, they kept possession well, but I just never felt they had the intensity to go and really go for it. The reason we won this game is because in the first 20 to 30 minutes, we came out and looked like a team that had decided, right, we win this game, we're going top 4. And we just played with aggression. We wanted to get to the second balls quicker than Wolves did. We just came out of the blocks. I was like, shit, it really is a team that's like, fuck this, we're getting into the top 4 by winning today. Antonio was in beast mode, obviously so much of a beast mode that he's fucked himself up again. Lingard, when he runs with the ball, he's just so elegant the way he does it and glides away from people. And Fornals' work rate is always there. Suchek in amongst the wars. We did well with the work rate in the first half an hour. Having said that, Wolves did have chances. We left ourselves quite open, and Willian Jose, if he was a half-decent striker, could have, would have, should have scored.
And he's not.
No, that's the
problem.
Quite
frankly, he's not.
Yeah. So it ended up being a case of once Antonio went off, it was very difficult for us. And he's going to be a bigger miss for us in the next 4 weeks than Declan Rice. If he's out, it's not confirmed what's happened to Antonio yet, because when Antonio's not in the team, we struggle to get the ball up the pitch. The only option we have is to play on play counter-attacking. Whereas as soon as we try and find some respite by hoofing the ball up the pitch, there's no one there to hold it up. So yeah, good. We'll still continue to score goals, but that defensive solidity that we've seen that's helped us for large parts of this season is not going to be there in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. Ogbonna is a massive miss. Rice is a massive miss. And I think, yeah, it's a concern. But I did say yesterday, I thought, you know what, we used this Rice injury as an opportunity to go to 5 at the back. Masuaku came back in, looked lively. I wouldn't put him past a potential punt for people looking for a cheapish defender that might do well and is going to play in the coming weeks. Let's have a look. 4.3 now, Masuaku. I'd prefer Masuaku at 4.3 over Rob Holding at 4.2.
Would you prefer him over Soufal at 4.6?
Yes.
I think there's every chance Masuaku will end up coming for me.
Yeah, the main reason being that I don't see clean sheets. If I don't see clean sheets, what do I want? Attacking returns. And that left side with Creswell there is just so much stronger for us. So, yeah, I would take Masuaku at 4.3 over Soufal at 4.6. Definitely.
I think the thing, from a wildcard perspective, I think you look at the fact that West Ham have got to play Leicester and Chelsea in the next 3, and it makes you want to look elsewhere. But this has got to run till the end, and there's a lot we can't see in those final 5 game weeks in terms of the blank double layout. And obviously, for those who are doing it now, we can't see what's going to happen in the FA Cup semi-finals, for example. What I can see is that West Ham's final 5 fixtures are Burnley, Everton, Brighton, West Brom and Southampton. And a couple of those games, I mean, Burnley, Brighton, Southampton on their day, all capable of beating you, as are obviously Everton as well. But it is a really good run of fixtures, particularly if you can still smell it. If you go into them final 5 and you're still fourth after the Chelsea game, you're going to really fancy that you can actually do this. I like Masuaku at 4.3. I think that's a really, really interesting one. And Lingard just doesn't look like he can particularly be overlooked at the moment. His form's too good.
Yeah, every game, and it's everything about him: assists, goals. He's got it all in his locker. If Antonio's out, I think it'll be it'll put people off. I do think he has a good chemistry and good relationship with Antonio. So if Antonio is out for a couple of weeks, that'll be a real disappointment as a Lingard owner. But he can do it himself. So he's staying with me now. He's definitely staying through the World Cup.
I haven't decided yet on Lingard. I think there seems to be a thinking from a lot of people that Lingard's already played without Antonio, and he has, but it's only one game. It's the Sheffield United game. Obviously, we saw him for an hour without Antonio last night, but Antonio's always been there. In all the games that Lingard's featured for West Ham, Antonio's played at least 70 minutes in all of them. And obviously, Lingard didn't score after Antonio went off last night. So what do we think the impact is realistically? Because you didn't have loads and loads. He particularly didn't. He didn't have any chance in the second half, for example.
No, we had nothing in the second half, and it's because we can't hold the ball up. Or Antonio gives us that focal point to start the attacks off. He'll get the ball into him and then feed a runner, which is often Lingard or Bowen, and no one was doing that. So we're really reliant on counter-attacking play at that point. And breaking quickly and doing what Lingard did for his first goal, picking the ball up deep and just running like a motherfucker. And he did, obviously. So, yeah, I think Lingard, 6.2 million.
I get that.
He's a really easy option for a lot of people.
But then there's a lot of people who also look at it and go, well, Jota's an easy option. Okay, he's probably going to be 7 million by this time next week. Rafinha's still a really good option, right? If you have all these three, where's the rest of your money going?
No, exactly. That's why I've got Bruno and Fernandes as my other two. Bruno Fernandes, Kane, Trent, Diaz. That's 5 premiums that I've got in my wildcard squad.
We're talking about all these budget defenders as well.
Yeah.
So do you foresee an idea to go something like Kane, Vardy? You're going to want Son as well, mate, honestly, for 32. You are, mate. You are going to want Heung-min Son for 32.
Maybe.
You might go De Bruyne instead. He might not even play in 32. Heung-min Son's got 2 games. That's the reality. When it comes to the final decision, you can go, oh, yeah, I want to go with De Bruyne. When it comes to that final decision, when you're on the wild card, don't think you're going to pick the player you're not sure is going to play at all. When you pick a guy who's got 2 decent fixtures as well. I mean, look at what we just said about Everton's home form. Makes that fixture actually more attractive for Tottenham. Son scored 4 times the last time he played Southampton. So there are other people in there. Lingard, Jota. We talked Mason Mount was another one you mentioned. They're all at that value, right? And none of them, I think, would be particularly bad picks, although I'd probably Ted would advise, Rotation FPL would advise against Mount, and so probably would I. Yes, you can power in Salah and Fernandes to go with the 3, but then what about Son? And if you go with Son, and you go with all them brilliant cheap budget enablers we've said defensively, do you then look at a front line that is something like Kane, Vardy, and, I don't know, Aguero, for example? Do you force it? Do you pay extras for Trent and Robertson because it's affordable? So there's different decisions for different people.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who right now would believe you have to have Jesse Lingard. I see people talking about him now saying we have to consider him as a captaincy option. Well, I definitely wouldn't be captaining him against probably the second or third best team in the league, and especially if Antonio's not available. So I might yet go without.
Yeah, I can see that, but once we get past the Leicester game, or maybe even after the Chelsea game, you're going to want to have a look at him for the run-in potentially. Like people forgetting, right? After this wild card, you've still got 8-9 transfers between now and the end of the season, and you can take hits if you want to. So it's not like your wild card team has to last you. Just have a think. Okay, if there are players that you want that you're not on. And you mentioning Son to me for Game Week 32 is a perfectly good example of that. If I don't get him on the wild card this week, just need to have an idea of how am I going to get him? What am I going to do?
It's 1 week, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. But if I've got no other transfers, like I'll give you an idea. Like I've had my wildcard team up in front of me whilst we've been talking, just chucking around some ideas. But I've got Mendy and Areola in goal. Nothing wrong with those two, right? Diaz, Trent, Dallas, Holding, Shaw. 4 out of those, I could play all 5 of those defenders if I really wanted to. Rafinha, Jota, Fernandes, Lingard, De Bruyne. Nothing wrong with the midfield. Kane, Iheanacho, and then Vidra, punt Vidra. Fuck it, he can just be there. But that still gives me enough 0.4 in the bank. So there's more than enough coverage. Okay, De Bruyne to Son next week to give me Son for the double.
That's the point, isn't it? If you decide you do want
Son to Aubameyang the week after when you blank, for example.
If you do want Son, then it's only going to be De Bruyne or Fernandes that leaves, isn't it?
Yeah, which is fine because it'll be De Bruyne because he blanks the week after, so I don't want him the week after that either anyway.
Then
so I'll keep De Bruyne.
Worth planning that transfer to go, right, you'll have De Bruyne against Leeds because you don't want Son against Manchester United, knowing you're going to make that transfer. What happens if you walk into other problems? What are you doing then? That's part of the issue. I think if you're going to look ahead, so say like Lingard and Rafinha, next 3 fixtures or so is not brilliant. But last 5 for them, brilliant. So in the ideal world, you could look at it and go, well, I'll go without and I'll buy them both come game week 34 or so. Life just doesn't work out that great and that simple, unfortunately, in Fantasy Premier League. And things will get in the way and your opinions will change. So I think people like Lingard and Rafinha kind of fall into perhaps, I know people are thinking form unbelievable now, but it's actually more a little bit longer term thinking. Yeah, you've got the Newcastle fixture in 32 as well. I'm not sure buying a West Ham player on Wildcard with Antonio out, Rice out, Leicester and Chelsea 2 of the next 3 is actually the right play. And that's what I need to consider. But I know I want one for the end if you're still in that race for top 4, admittedly.
For me, again, remember, I bought Jesse Lingard quite cheap. 6.1 is what I paid. He's 6.3 now. He's only going to go up in value in the next few weeks as well. So I'm going to stick with Jesse Lingard. It's that double advantage and benefit as well as when you see him like that goal he scored against Arsenal, he plays for your team and you have an FPL. It's the holy trinity of fucking satisfaction. So Jesse stays, mate. Trust me. When you see Harry Kane stick it in the top corner and you captain him in FPL, don't tell me you don't get a little bit excited just knowing, fuck yeah.
I get excited anyway.
So, yeah.
I get excited when we cross the halfway line, mate.
Do you want to tell everybody what we've got lined up for the rest of the week, including a little rundown on the wildcard special? And I'm going to pick one question from the Twitter questions that I think is the best.
Scrap the question because we're going to have all-out war if we don't talk about Wolves, mate.
Yeah. Do it. Go on.
Because I think part of the thinking for those who are on wildcard now or thinking of doing it was obviously the swing for Wolves, the swing for Arsenal, and suddenly neither particularly appeal.
Parker_Bradley, do not touch our defence on wildcard. He said it himself, mate.
Do not, I repeat, do not touch our defence on your wildcard is what Bradley is saying. Unfortunately, and I know he's right, those next 5 fixtures are unbelievable. It's freaky to get those 5 fixtures in a row, mate. 5 of the bottom 6 in the next 5.
Guarantee me that they will play a back 5. I will buy one of their defenders.
I'm there as well.
The happiest thing I saw yesterday was when they played a back 4. I was like, fuck it, here we go then. Thank you very much. I'll have a piece of that.
I think because of that, if you're going defensive, Cody is probably the best way to go over Saiss now because Bolly missed out last night through illness. So if it's back 4, could it be Bolly instead of Saiss? 8 Nori is 5 million at left back. I'm not convinced. At least I know with Cody, all right, it's 4.9. It's not great price. At least I know he'll play. Do I want a Wolves player that the incredible stat, and you probably would have heard it last night. So since Raul Jimenez's injury, no Wolves player has scored the first goal in a Premier League game.
Wow. I heard another stat actually that was even crazier, which is why I'm so glad we scored the first goal. Wolves are the best record in the Premier League when they go ahead in games. I think it's 6 wins, 1 draw from the 7 times.
Because they never go fucking ahead.
Well, 7 times they have. And when they have, they've won 6 of those games and drawn 1. And I'm like, well, thank fuck we scored first, because if they'd have scored first, we'd be done for. It's second half, first half. This is just it's one of those weird things that's becoming truer the longer time goes on.
Since Jimenez's injuries, game week 10, the only time he scored first in the game was against Leeds, the Ilhan Meslier own goal. That is it. That is staggering. With that kind of record, how do you go through 20 Premier League games and not score first and actually not be going down?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Absolutely crazy.
So you're looking at the next 5 fixtures, and if they can't score first in games, they're probably not keeping many clean sheets. So, I mean, like Neto, I think would be the attacking one to go for.
He was lively yesterday. Got a few shots off, decent.
But would you pick him over any of those others?
No.
The Lingards, Jotas.
My midfield is as good as locked in, mate, at the moment. My midfield is as good as locked in.
I think they should play Fabio Silva up front. I wouldn't gamble on Podence either. I would still, if you're going and attacking one and you want to attack the fixtures, it would still be Neto. I wouldn't rule out going for him either, just because I want to do something different and attack the fixtures. But unbelievably, it's possible that I have none of them. Because even if you take Cody at 4.9, look at all them options we've said between sort of 4 and 4.3. You could fill your team with like Phillips, Holding, Masuaku. And let's be honest, they're all better teams than Wolves at the moment.
Yeah. Agree with you. Wolves are just going to stumble into the end of the season, but I don't think they're at any risk of looking over their shoulders, but they are going to splutter.
Oh, no.
Through games.
They can't not stay up with that run of 5 fixtures that they've got. And to be honest, even the final 3, Tottenham, Everton, Manchester United, all 3 of them at the end might have nothing to play for. So it could be 8 very good fixtures for Wolves. And that's why I think many of us want to attack them. I've not got really any confidence in what I'd be doing. I'd be doing it purely on fixtures. No form to be buying their players.
No. So back to where I was 2 minutes ago, James. Do you want to tell everybody what we've got lined up for the rest of the week?
Yes, I shall. Tomorrow, Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday, I'll be streaming Ask James on YouTube. Probably going to do it 12 o'clock this week if you're in the UK. Friday, we'll get it out as early as possible. We're going to do a bit of a wildcard special. My intention is to announce what the wildcard's going to be. We'll look at the problems a little bit around 35, 37. So we'll catch you up to speed on that, in case we might have some information on TV fixtures, which isn't normally helpful for FPL, but might be a little bit in terms of understanding what could happen, actually. We'll cover that off again. I think Suj will be revealing his wildcard, but he won't. Suj will make a last-minute decision at 5:30 or forget, worse, that it's a 6:30 p.m. UK deadline.
On Friday, is it?
Yes, it's a Friday deadline. Don't forget.
Yeah, no, I will not. I will be locking the team in live on the show. I'll do a screen share with you on the Zoom, James, and you can have evidence and proof that I have actually locked in my wildcard.
On Patreon from Intermediate Tier, we got a Q&A we did yesterday. Tottenham later. I'm going to rip this bastard again, mate. We've got a podcast tomorrow looking on players who have played under Sir Alex Ferguson, who have gone on to manage, and majority of them have not done particularly well. Thursday, we've got a quiz. Fridays, as always, our game week preview, differential show previewing the game week 31 games. We preview every game, likely moves. Although we're going to obviously do that on the wildcard special, but we'll preview all the games for the weekend on that particular show.
And predict which one's going to be 0-0.
Game to be 0-0 this weekend. Honestly, I'll go. If you ask me to name one now, no. If you ask me to name a game now, I'll say Fulham Wolves.
And we'll end with one question that we did have on Twitter. Thank you for sending in the questions. We just end up talking so long that we never get round to them. Steve Smith has null and voided the entire Europe versus rest of the world competition, James, because you've been cheating.
I've got Masuaku fit now. I'm all right.
Did everyone know Rafinha is Italian? I presumed he was Brazilian. If you're having Antonio as Jamaican, I'm having Rafinha as Italian.
What are you talking about?
Rafinha was born in Porto Alegre, Brazil. However, he is of Italian descent. That's what it says on Wikipedia, mate. That's what it says on Wikipedia.
No, read what it says on Wikipedia. Rafael Diaz Belloli. I thought he was playing against Diaz this weekend. I didn't think that was his name. Known as Rafinha, he's a Brazilian professional footballer.
Underneath that, it says he was born in Brazil, but he is of Italian descent. Now, he hasn't got any international caps. So technically, he could still play for Italy.
Has he got an English passport?
Because, yeah, do you think he could get in and join the plethora of attacking midfield talent that we already...
You don't need... It's not a position we're short of, in fairness.
No, fair play. Good. I hope you're all staying safe wherever you are. Had a fantastic break over the Easter weekend and are ready for some wildcard tinkering. If you're on wildcard or enjoying some football that's up and coming, stay safe wherever you are. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week and be nice to each other, please. Cue music, man, child.